Now that you have the mass of your model created, which is to say the overall building shape and any major site elements, it's time to begin putting in all of the details of your project. Now, for us, we actually have a plan for our project that we sketched. So why don't we use that to figure out where the, say, interior partitions are? And because we sketched this using Morpholio Trace, there is an option in Trace to share your document as a vector-based file. And it's pretty easy. You just tap the share button and choose vector-based. Make sure to turn off all the other junk. We don't need any of the colors or any of that sort of thing. Once you've exported it, go to SketchUp and you can import it. Just choose File, Import, and make sure that you browse for the correct kind of file. Now mine is looking for all kinds of files. I'm going to choose AutoCAD file format, and what you'll see is there's really just one option here. And when I choose import, I do want to check some of the options. When you import a CAD file format, there's a number of features, but the big thing is flattening the line work. Who knows what sort of line work we're going to get? Anyway, I'll click OK and import, and it will tell me whether or not it worked. Then you have to find it, and you see how it's zoomed out? It's because it imports the CAD file onto the origin. The origin of these files, the 000 location, happens to be right underneath the base of the foundation here, the site. So I can move that by just selecting it. It's an object, and maybe I'll move it over here onto my project. And I probably have to move it up so that I can see it. I believe I made my floor 8 inches thick, so I'll move it up 8 inches. And now when we go to the floor plan, you'll see, oh, there's my CAD plan. And I can move it into position. Now, of course, I'm just using this as a reference. CAD plans, if you edit them, they're actually lines. The only thing is that when you hand draw, you often have these kind of little stray lines, crossing of the endpoints. So they're a little tricky to edit this way. I could draw right on top of this and try and get my interior partitions this way, but they don't always fill in, as you can see. So sometimes just drawing a line over the edge will get it to fill in. But in this case, we're going to draw brand spanking new and just use the plan for reference. I'm going to tap C to close the component so that I'm back into my model. Make the back wall, as you might remember, the roof is sloped. So maybe I'm just going to copy this back surface and use that as my interior partition. So what you can do, double click on your site, your massing model, and you can double click on this back wall. You see how I have the surface and the bounding line selected. Now I can just use the System Control C to copy. I could also use the copy button up here if that toolbar is available. When I close this family and I click Control V or paste, you see how I have that wall now connected to my cursor, and I can just use this endpoint here and place it right in the back of the room. I can also right-click on it while it's selected and make it a group. And as I've mentioned many a time, making a group is the way to go to keep your model organized. Now, you might see a little bit of this weird broken glass. Again, that's Z-fighting when you have two objects on top of each other. Now I'm just going to move this into position, and I know that it's about 5 feet, so I'm going to just type in 5 feet instead of trying to snap to my poorly drawn hand plan underneath, but you can see that's pretty close. I can also double click on this, use the push-pull tool with the create new surface option, tapping the control button. See how now I can make an extra copy, and I'll just type in 5 and enter for a 5-inch interior partition. So this is a really quick and dirty way to make a partition, and using our plan for reference. Same thing down here with this wall. I can draw a rectangle on the ground, and I'm going to use my drawing underneath, and you can see how variable it is. Shall I use this end line or this end line? I don't know. I'll use this end line, but the dimension down here in the value control box is a little weird, so I'm going to override that by just typing in 5,24 and enter. And now I've got a shape that's a little more kind of realistic, or at least rounded. You want to try to avoid those sort of microscopic fractions. Anyway, like we did before, I'll make a group, edit the group, push-pull it up. I don't want to hide the rest of the model so I can see what I'm doing. And I probably want to pull it up, I don't know, about 3 feet. All right. To make the top of this object, I can use any number of tools. I could probably the easiest one is use the push-pull with the control button activated, and I'll push-pull it up maybe 1.5 inches. We'll pretend like it's a big slab of wood or something like that. And I can pull this out 1 inch. Oops, except don't have the copy option on. Tap control again. I'll pull it out 1 inch. And again, when you double tap with the push-pull tool, it will repeat whatever your last push-pulling was. Lastly, you'll want to paint any of these interior surfaces. We haven't gotten to deep painting yet, but you can see that now we have a pretty well-conceived interior project. Complete your model with elements such as furnishings or landscape items, trees, plantings, all that sort of thing. You get to use one of my favorite features of SketchUp, which is components. And here in the component menu, you'll see the ones that are in the model so far. If I click on a component here, I can actually select any instances of the project, and we knew that this was the component. I can place another one, and oh, there we go. In fact, this type of component is often pretty typical. You see how it's basically a flat surface. And that's on purpose. It saves geometry. You're often with components trying to manage how much geometry is in your model so that if it's simpler, it works faster. You'll also see the CAD plan in here. And I can sort this in any number of ways, small thumbnails, although if it gets any smaller, I won't be able to see it at all. And then you can choose a list. You can also tell it to go to the section where it's in model, which is where we are. And you can go to different elements here. For example, there's a components sampler, and you'll see some fun components in here. Before you bring in any components, you do want to make sure you put them all on a tag. And interesting enough, I have a wall lines tag, which comes from my Morpholio trace drawing, or from my AutoCAD drawing, because AutoCAD drawings have what are called layers. Tags are essentially the same thing. So I can make a new tag for, say, furnishings, if I can spell it right. And I can even make a new one for landscaping as well, landscape elements or something like that. And you can make it the current tag by just clicking over here where there's this teeny tiny little pencil. That makes it the current layer. So if I make furnishings the current layer, any object that I place on that layer will be more easily controlled. And for example, if I want to use this bed, I'll just click on it here in the components menu. It becomes kind of connected to my cursor, and I can just click to place it. If there's an object already in your model that you want to put on a tag, just select it, go up here to Entity Info, and it will say what tag it's on. So I'm going to put that on the Furnishings tag. And you might say, well, why am I doing all this? If I come over here and let's go back and make the landscape elements our current layer, I can now turn on and off the furnishings layer. And this makes it super handy if I want to, say, control the materials on the floor. It's nice to not have the furniture there sometimes. Oh, and same with the landscaping. Anyway, I'm going to make my furnishings the current tag again and go and get some more components. Now, here I can search in this menu, but much better is to go to the 3D warehouse. This is SketchUp's kind of online library of, hundreds of thousands of models. And you can search in this library, and you can see here there's some guides down at the bottom. But let's say I just want a nightstand. I can type that in, search it up. And whoa, look at all those nightstands. There's 2,600 and 960, whatever. That's a lot. So we can filter these in any number of ways. The biggest one is the file size. You might want to reduce the file size a little bit. Also, you can even do a lower polygon count. And that, especially for things like trees, if they have every single leaf drawn, that's going to slow down your model. But then you just find one that you like. Most of them are kind of like this. I'll click on this component. I can view it in 3D by just tapping the 3D preview. And here it is. I can kind of orbit it without loading it into my model. But otherwise, if you want this in your model, just click download. And yes, you do want to load it into your model, or else you wouldn't have made that click. And now the component is just like we saw before. You can click to place it. Now, most components are in the 3D warehouse anyway, are kind of like this. They're just an series of objects, and sometimes there's nested components or groups or something like that. You can kind of keep clicking on it until you get inside. Some components are like this bed that we downloaded. It's called a dynamic component, and it has a little green arrow when you download them. With those, if you right-click on it and go to Dynamic Components, which obviously won't show up unless it is one, you can choose Component Options. And it has what are essentially parameters. For example, if I want this to be a queen-size bed and hit Apply, the bed gets a little bigger. Or vice versa, or if it wants to be slower. And some of these have some interesting features, such as see how the number of pillows has increased. What you search for and how specific you are will get you greater results. Often you can get entire architectural projects. I could search for tiny house and get a whole tiny house. In this case, I just want the kitchen, but I typed in tiny house kitchen, and look at this. I've gotten some pretty decent options here, and I'm going to just download one of these right into my model. I don't even need to preview it, and this will come in with a whole bunch of good stuff. This is so time-saving when you're working on a project, or at least it can be. So let's take a look at this component. First of all, when you bring the object in and you have the move command option, even though the section plane is active, you see how I have these rotator tools available so I can snap it to the correct position. And when you're moving components around, again, use these endpoints, object snaps. I want this to only go in the green direction, so I'll tap the left arrow, but then use that back wall as a reference point. You see how it'll just snap right to the back wall, which is obviously super handy. Now, when you have a component like this, they're often quite complicated. I'm going to double click on it to edit it. Now, there are a couple of things to be aware of in these components. First of all, you see how this gray bounding box, it's actually pretty tall, which tells me there's something up there. So I'm going to go to the View menu and turn off section cuts. I can do that without disturbing my saved scene with my style. Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of upper cabinets. Well, I don't need those. As long as I use my cursor inside the component here, I won't mess up, I won't close the component. So I can edit these guys now. It looks to me like I've got a component within a component, or perhaps a group. So I can double click in to edit the top bar, top bunch of cabinets. There we go. Now there may be other random objects. See these little lines up here? These also are annoying because they are not needed. And then lastly, what you'll find is that some things are groups or components like these, so they're easy to select. Sometimes you'll end up with just surfaces. And just be aware that if you accidentally move something, and I'll just grab these and choose move, it will alter things, including random lines that are in your project. So just be aware with these components. They can have little traps in them that are a problem. Also, they can often have objects with many, many polygons. So if so, just be aware that this could slow your model down. So far, these don't look too bad. Lastly, you can select objects out of a component and just kind of place them in the model independently. So I'm going to select these, Control-C to copy, and then Control-X to get rid of them. And it looks like there's a random, what is that? I don't know what that is. It's a cup. Oh, look at that. It's connected to, looks like a little flower pot. I'm going to just delete that for now because I don't want it in there. Now, when I close the component here, just by clicking outside, I can Control-V for paste in this new object here. And of course, this is a group, so I can, or this is a group of components. I can make a group out of them. And now they're much easier to edit using these editing tools, which is great, seating groupings. Obviously, this painting is not going to work because I have a window behind it, so I'm going to have to get rid of that. But the rest of it seems to be working pretty well. Other problem with components is they're often facing the wrong way, and you can just select it and use this special tool, the flip tool. And when you flip flip out like that, what you'll see is 3 planes, and corresponding to the XYZ axis, just click on the plane where you want the object to flip over to, and now this component is on the opposite side of the wall. I can move it into position like I normally would. So a real handy way to edit your components. Now, our bathroom has a door to it, so I downloaded a lovely wood door. Let me just move it into position here. I'm going to grab it by the endpoint associated with the trim and move it up against the wall. And of course, you can see it has not cut a hole in the wall. Wouldn't that be nice if it did? But it doesn't cut a hole. But what we can do is make our own using a rectangle. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle from basically one end of the trim here. You do have to get in there enough so that you can see the endpoint of the trim. And then I'm transparently zooming and panning so that now I have drawn the rectangle. It doesn't really look any different, but we know that there's a surface there, and I can just push-pull that surface through. The big thing is, you see how I'm getting the broken glass iconography here? You want to make sure that you drag it all the way to the opposite side of the wall, because that was just showing the surface on top of the door. Lastly, if the component is not fitting in the wall, you can use the scale tool. The scale tool allows you to kind of stretch this object in many different kinds of directions. I'm just going to drag it out until the trim pops out of this side of the wall, and there you go. That's a fairly easy way to make a door fit into your bathroom. Sometimes you're in a situation, like I am here with my landscape, that I like this fence, but I need a component that only has one kind of bay, not the 3 bays that this one has. But I want it to look exactly the same otherwise. Well, components, if you edit one, they all change. So I need to make this one different than the others, and the way to do that is right-click on it and choose Make Unique. Now, anything I do to this component will only affect this one. You do have to be aware, though, that a lot of components use nested subcomponents. In this case, if I double-click on this guy and edit it, you can see here it's editing all of these slats. So the easiest way to get around this is actually just to select all the slats, right-click on them, and choose Explode. And now I should have access just to the slats inside this model here, and I can just move them over as needed. And of course, I've got some extra posts in here. Same thing. These posts are almost certainly components, so just be aware that you'll have to do some fancy footwork so that you don't change them all and kind of mess up your model. And do be aware that as you add in lots of elements from the 3D warehouse, you can end up with a lot of tags, and I can select these tags. I believe these are all interior objects, and I can just right-click on them and delete the extra tags. And you don't have to, but it does kind of clean up your model, and you can assign these to the layer, the tag that you want, and click OK, and it just means it's a lot easier to turn things on and off. Obviously, the plant hosta, same thing, it would want to go on the landscape elements tag. Something I'm probably not going to find in the 3D warehouse is some front steps for my project. Those tend to be kind of custom objects, and what you can do, you can just make them yourself. And I'll just draw a landing here, and I don't know, maybe it's 6 feet by 8 feet, something like that. Just be sure, like before, that you make it a group. And this is going to separate out the geometry. I can now move it without fear of kind of fiddling around with other parts of the object model, and kind of use my design sense of how big it should be and where the location is. And now if I edit it, I can pull it up. Maybe 3 feet is probably a good dimension. Now, how am I going to draw the steps? Well, you do actually have to know a little bit about architecture to understand that steps have a dimension. Exterior steps are probably not going to be any bigger than 9 inches or so. For our purposes, that works just fine because this is 36 inches tall, and 36 divided by 9 is 4 steps. Now, how am I going to divide up this surface into 4 even areas? Well, if you right-click on one edge, I've selected it, And first, right-click on it. There is a divide tool. This is, of course, a super handy thing. And then as you move your mouse, you see how it tells you how many segments you're going to end up. Just click when you get to 4. You could also type in the number 4 and enter. And now you might say, well, hey, wait a second. I don't see anything different here. But what you'll find, just hide the rest of the model, is that there are 4 individual segments just on this one edge. Now I can take this bottom line and copy it. Again, we know how to copy, right? Use the move copy command, but then tap Control to make it copy. One fun thing you can do is tap Control again, and if you look at your cursor, it becomes the stamp tool. And this will allow you to make multiple copies of this line, which now gives us 4 steps that we can push-pull out. I'm going to push-pull this out a foot, and then this guy I can double click on it twice to get the bottom step and keep going. And of course we could add refinements like materials and overhangs, but that's how you can very quickly make a front stoop. If I want to make a handrail here, it's a little more complicated. We can draw in a reference line that gets the slope of the stair, and maybe I'll complete it by drawing this outline of the whole top of the deck. Actually, you can select on the line, you can double click on or triple click on the line, and it will select all the segments. And you can even weld them together if you just right click on them and choose weld them together. Here, let me move this up, maybe say 40 inches. You'll see that it's actually one line. Now, a cool way to make just a handrail is to draw a circle on the end, and I'm going to use my red reference plane to make sure I draw it kind of perpendicular to this line, and let's make it 1 inch in radius. And now there's a special tool that will force the circle to follow this profile. It's called the Follow Me tool. What you do is you click on the profile, and then in this case, because we have welded the edges, it will follow along the whole length of the model. And now I could fill this in with vertical slats or metal or whatever it is that I want for my design. Just be sure that you make sure that it's a group or a component. Again, make a group. And this is also handy because now I can edit this and copy it and move it around without accidentally just moving part of it and then losing my perfectly created slope. Now, one other complexity when you're modeling these elements is what if you don't want to draw on the orthogonal XYZ axis, but at some other line that's in the model? Say I want to make this have a little overhang. Well, I can draw a line here. I'm going to just draw it along this edge of the bottom of the stairs. To give it an overhang, you can start a line, but then move your mouse over this line that's at angle you want. Now you see how I get this purple parallel to edge, and I can even lock that inference by holding down Shift and drag it up as far as I want for my overhang. Maybe I'll give it just a couple of inches. Now I have drawn a line which is off the orthogonal axis, and that's okay. SketchUp doesn't seem to mind. Just be sure you erase the extra pieces here before you get rid of it. But it is a line. It's a solid line. You can edit it and move it around. So if I want a thinner or deeper overhang, I can just kind of edit it that way. Looking at the materials in the model, they're pretty underwhelming, to tell you the honest truth. There are a couple of peculiar things, like, for example, these lines here. I actually do kind of want to get rid of them. I could use the eraser tool and just hold down Shift and they go away. There are a bunch here, so the alternative is actually to use a feature called Soften. And if you right-click on the object, there's a Soften button, and that shows up in your tool palette. And as I drag it, you'll see that the object might get softer. If it doesn't get rid of all the lines, you can absolutely just select the object and unsoften it, which is kind of an interesting way. And see how many of these lines show up. Those are kind of the hidden geometry lines. So if it's a problem, just use that Shift tool. You can see the lines are mostly gone here. They are in the model. They're just They're just hidden. So to get nicer materials, the first thing is often we're going to want to use materials from a manufacturer, or just search on the internet for something that's not in here. And the easiest way to do that is to go to the internet. And you can obviously use any search engine you want. I do happen to like Bing, if not for any support of Microsoft, but just that they haven't been sued by as much as Google. So you can click through on an image that you like, and get the final image rather than the web page just saves you a couple clicks. And the one really important thing when you search, be sure to use seamless texture in your search. You can also filter the search here and make it, say, a large or extra large image. Large is usually plenty good for us, but this shows you the dimension of the material. So you can click on any one that you like. A lot of these will go to a website. For example, this is like SketchUp Texture Club. But either way, when you get to the preview image, make sure you go to the full image. You see how it fills the screen? That's going to be the highest resolution image, and you can save that onto your computer. Alternatively, if it's very important to you to have material from a manufacturer, Kravit obviously is a very high quality material company, manufacturer, and you can get a really nice image there just by downloading the main image onto your computer. Just be sure you note the kind of vertical and horizontal repeat so that you can get the image correctly. And often they have items in here, images of the application of this material. When you want to place these materials, make sure you are inside some object that can receive the materials. So typically a grouper component will not work. You'll have to double click inside it. And maybe I want one of these materials on the floor. So in which case you just choose File. And here's my image. Big thing is when you import this image, there's several different ways you can use it. Texture is what we're interested in right now. If I choose import, and maybe I just want this to show up on the floor, there it is in all its glory. And if I don't like the size of the texture in the model, I can just right click on it and under texture, choose position. And what you'll see when you do this probably is little buttons here, and each one will allow you some different feature. So for example, if I click on the green one, it will rotate it. If I click on the red one, it'll change the position, and the blue one will will also change it, again, depending on how you click on it and where. If you just want to change the size, the green one will work. Just make sure you drag it in the axis here so that it doesn't warp the material. But then just outside of the material to kind of editing the component. Now, what if you want something like a carpet? I've got one of a Oriental rug here that I got, and I actually got it with a transparent background, or sometimes known as an alpha channel, and this will allow it to come into my model with this irregular boundary. But make sure you use image instead of texture. Texture is basically paint, but an image is just a picture. And now I can click to place the object. If it's a little big, we can use our scale tool. Click the scale tool, which gives us these funny little green boxes. Those are known as grips. And we can shrink down this object. And now I have myself a rug in my project. What's cool, too, is let's say you want it to have just a tiny bit of depth. You can double click on it, or you can right click on it and choose Explode. We exploded our carpet. Do make sure to make it a group so that you don't mess anything up. But now I can just pull it up even the tiniest amount, maybe 0.5 inches. And that gives me a little bit of depth above the floor. If you want an area of flooring to have, say, a different material, you do have to come in and draw a line that divides up the surface of that face. And if I just unhide this wall, you can see there's a line that I should be able to select either area. And I'm going to just, in this view, copy this line over 5 inches. It's easier than trying to trace. That said, if you have a door or something like that where there's a threshold, you are going to want to draw in that line. It just gets a little tricky because, of course, now I can't see where I'm drawing. I think I'm drawing in the right spot, but I'm not entirely sure. So you end up kind of doing a lot of this transparent zooming and panning. Again, tapping H to unhide the wall. But now you can see, yes, I've got these different areas of the project, and I can paint them any material I want. And don't forget that these materials should make sense. You don't want a little sliver of the material. So use that texture reposition option to change where this texture line, so we can get a full time. When dividing up walls and surfaces for different materials, I want maybe a tile wainscoting around this space. So I want to divide up this wall to have a lower section and an upper section. If I double click on the floor shape, but then holding down Shift, see how my cursor gets the plus minus button? I can now deselect the floor face. And then if I use Move and tap Control to copy, watch what happens. I only have the lines. I can move this up. Let's make it, 30 inches. And conveniently, that divides up the wall. Now, I do need to draw the extra line on these outer walls in order to divide up those. And of course, I don't want the surface right here in front of me, so I can erase that. And of course, it's done multiple lines on the wall because of it being a door there. But now I can paint using my material that is the one that I wanted to use, this one here, this lovely tile. I will have to do this interior partition separately. What if I want to update these outer walls, divide them up in the same way? Well, I can start my line, but you can see that I can't see all the way up to the ceiling because it's been cut away by a section. So to get rid of that, just go to the View menu and turn off section cuts. Now, you do want to make sure that you are inside the space when you do that so you can actually see. But now I'm going to draw a line in the blue direction, and you can see it divides up the wall very nicely. Obviously, you want to do this on all sides where you're going to have a different material, and that way the bathroom walls can have some other material other than what's in the kitchen and the other parts of the project. Now that we have fully populated our model, it's probably a good time to set up some final views, some high quality images of what we want to present. So if I change a view just by orbiting or managing the camera position, do be sure to update that scene. Same with the interior. Now that I actually have stuff in the interior, maybe I want to zoom in or out, pan left or right, controlling whether or not this is a 1 point or a 2 point. And of course, as you compose these views, I'm going to just update this interior. You may notice one thing or another that you want to change. The other thing is, from this view, I can create another view by using the position camera tool. And this is great because I have gone to the trouble of changing my field of view in this particular angle here. And that is something I don't want to have to reset that if I can avoid it. And again, compose the image to show off your project as best as possible. I'm going to add a new scene, and I could up here update the name, or like before, I could update it in the scene properties. So you should have two interior views. Maybe I'll call this one interior view. You should also have two exterior views. And of course, what looks best is kind of up to you and your project design. Obviously, exterior views, you do want to probably show off the landscaping a little bit more. For interior views, it's pretty much about the furnishings and the view outside. So now I've got all of my scenes. When setting up presentation drawings, you do want to try some different graphic looks to your model. And for that, we use styles. And we have talked briefly about styles, mainly using the fast modeling style, which is a good idea. But there are other ones out there, including the sketchy edges style, which we are using SketchUp. So this is kind of a fun way to enhance your model. And these are really cool. If you just click on the icon here, it will redraw your model based on whatever your settings are. And you can see a lot of these look very sketchy, like literally sketchy, just by kind of wiggling the lines. And this is a matter of preference. So, of course, I am old school, so I like the old school look to drawings, but you may like some other feature. You can even use black background with white lines, which is, again, is a really cool way to draw. So either way, if you do this, you will want to look at the style and make sure that it doesn't have any weird things. In this case, it's showing the section plane. So I can choose this style, but then I can edit it. And there are a number of different features here under the face style, for example. I can show background materials, whether or not it has transparency. But then I can come in, there are a number of different tabs here, kind of with little icons. There can be watermarks and things like that. But in our case, we just don't want the section planes to be visible. And oh, doesn't that look nicer? You can even add in the sky. You just turn on the sky. There's a button for it. Same with the ground. And you can pick colors that are perhaps more appropriate to the location of the thing. So this, in this case, maybe we're going to go with a little more of a monochromatic kind of scheme. And actually, I suppose that's a little bright for the ground. Let's tone that down just a touch. And how nice is that? Just make sure you save that scene. I'm going to choose add, and it's going to say, hey, you have altered that sketchy line style. I'm going to just let it update the selected style. This is very risky because if I have used that style on another tab, it'll update that style, and I'm not entirely sure I want it to look like that. But generally, you do want to update the selected style. The other thing is, if you have a style that you've worked to make it look really nice, you can come in here, pick an interior view, and back in the Styles menu, go back to the Select tab and make sure you sort for In Model, and then it should have a little preview of your style. And look at that. Doesn't that look nice? Just make sure to add a scene so that it remembers that it has this setting, because the style is glued to the scene. So make sure that you have it selected correctly. The other thing is any changes that I make to this style moving forward. So for example, maybe I crank up the level of detail so that I see more features. I can add in things like profiles and depth cues. And this really can enhance your model. I can even change how much the extension lines, extend by just changing the number. And as long as I click the Update Style button, here, it will remember, and it will remember it for any scene that has that particular style. This one you can see now it has slightly darker edges. Sketchy styles are awesome, but another way that we can view our models is kind of with a photorealistic look. Now, this isn't a full-on rendering option like you might see with V-Ray or Enscape or Lumion, but it does make the models look pretty nice. There are some styles that you can choose from. If I go to the ambient occlusion styles, there are a couple in here. If you just click on it, you can see what they do. They kind of turn on a feature called ambient occlusion, which makes the edges of objects a little darker and all that. Now, what I don't really like it. It looks a little blocky, so I prefer to start with that sketchy style. So let's go back to our in model here and use our sketchy style, or I'll just click on the saved scene so it calls up my current style. And by the way, if you've been fiddling around with a lot of styles, there may be like a whole bunch here in the menu. You can purge the unused styles. And so right now, all I have is this fast modeling style and then the sketchy style that I added with the background. So first of all, you want to make sure you don't mess up one of your current styles, but I want to keep the line weight in here. So I'm just going to duplicate this style. And there's a button here in the styles menu called Create New Style that basically takes the one I'm working on and changes, makes a copy of it. And I can edit this, or well, first of all, I can change the name. So let's call it photo mode. And when you change a parameter, you do have to update the style, as we have learned. And there's a couple of different things. First of all, I think the extension lines, I upped that number a bit. That's a bit much, and maybe some of these other things I can turn down, depth cues, halos, other things that maybe are a bit much as you look at the drawing. But then then if we go here, there's several other tabs. The next one over is kind of like the face style tab. And here in the style menu, there's an option for Photoreal. And if you tap on that, suddenly your materials look more realistic. And if you have things like transparency, you can make it look nicer. The other thing you can add on is this ambient occlusion feature that we saw before. And there's a bunch of sliders here that you can change. Each one will make the drawing look a little different, so you'll want to kind of study the drawing and decide how much you like the way it looks. I tend to like it a little bit darker, but I know that that's not everyone's taste. So these are all features which are part of the style, so do make sure that you update your style. And this style can be applied to any other drawing. The big thing is don't mess up your sketchy saved scene. You'll want to right click on this and add a new scene, or go to the scenes menu if you'd rather, and rename this as your Photoreal exterior version of the drawing. There are a few other settings that you can change here in the style in the default tray. One is shadows. You can turn on shadows, and this will alter things a little bit because, of course, it's daytime now. And you can change the time of year and the time of day to get a different look for the shadows. Again, it depends on other features that you have turned on and off. So if the shadow it's not using the sun for shading, then you might get a different result. Again, you'll want to study this and make sure that it looks nice in the way you want. Lastly, if you want, there's this environments feature, and this is a fun one. You can click on this, and what it will do is it kind of adds a background into your model, also fiddles around with the way the horizon line looks. And these can be edited. So here in the environments menu, you can kind of edit the environment that you have chosen and kind of rotate around the background to get kind of the best look to your model. And there's other things, how bright the sky dome is. You can wash it out more or less, and any reflections add or subtract to those. So each of those features are not part of the style for whatever reason. So if you want this view to be updated, you will have to right click on it and update the view. Now, lastly, to create other perspectives with these same features, you do have to go and update the views. I added several things that are not part of this style, so I would want to create a new view, perhaps using the station point position camera tool, place my camera, and then look at the model, whatever view that I think is appropriate. And this will retain the features that I added, for example, the sun settings and the environment settings. And again, just add a scene as you see fit. You want to show off your project. Typically, this is at eye height, but any other height is possible. For the interior views, you'll have to decide if you want the background or not. But if I do click the new Photoreal style that I created, whoops, I guess it's this one, then it will recall all of those settings that I created. You'll just have to decide if you want the background seen through the images or not, the environment, in which case, by all means, turn it on. I've turned it on here, and I do kind of like that, but now the ground is looking a little too green for me. So here, back in my style, I can edit the style again. I've done this before, but this time when I go here to the background settings, first of all, you can change a little bit of the sky color, but I can also change the ground color, maybe make it a little more brown and less green. But then I can also change the horizon color, make that a little black. You see, that kind of gives me a little sharper edge. Yeah, I just have to make sure when I update this style that I like the way that looks. I'm going to add my scene, but let's go back to the exterior Photoreal view and make sure that it looks good there. But I like the darker horizon. Some of you might prefer the lighter horizon. Again, exactly a model. An instance of taste versus a strict rule. And by the way, you can absolutely have hidden objects in any of these scenes, and it will remember, SketchUp will remember what was hidden and what wasn't. The only thing is, if you do want to, say, get rid of the floor plan that I brought in from AutoCAD, probably the best thing there to do is to delete it. Whoops, except I didn't delete it. I deleted the wrong element here. Make sure you get the right one and delete that. So that it goes away everywhere. Hidden objects, on the other hand, will remain in the model. They're just not visible in this particular view. Adding orthographic views is actually super simple. We've done all the hard work here, modeling and coming up with graphic looks for objects. But to do that, you just want to go to the camera toolbar and turn on parallel projection. And this is the model as we love it. And so let's say we want to just turn on the floor plan, for example. We do need to call up the section plane. So under the View menu, call up the section plane. There it is. And to make it active, you can right-click on it and activate cut. You can also just double-click on it. Now that we have seen it, let's turn off the section planes because you don't want to see those. They kind of make your model a little muddled. But then otherwise, you do want to have this Views menu called up, the Views toolbar, which I believe we used earlier, and the top view is the plan. So now, once we come into this view, once you flatten it, some of the ambient occlusion and other features aren't nearly as dramatic, but you can see that it makes a pretty decent combination floor plan and site plan. So don't forget, add a scene, and here you go. And you'll want to rename these because now we really are going to have a lot of different scenes. To produce the elevation, let's do the south elevation, you put in another section plane. So here's your section plane tool. I'm going to tap the left arrow to force it to go in the green direction. And I'll just click right in front of my stairs, and we'll call this south elevation. And now I can use my saved scenes, my standard views to call up this elevation view. And you can decide whether or not having the background is annoying or not. I actually do find the environment a little annoying in the elevations. But let's add a scene here for those elevations. Oh, I did forget to turn off the view of the section planes. There we go. Now let's add a scene so that we can call up this south elevation again. Using this same technique, we can make make an elevation for the east side of the building. Just try not to show the car in the way or anything else. You typically do these elevations as close to the building as possible. So here's my east elevation, and again, we're going to want to use our saved standard view here. I believe this is the right view. It's definitely the right view. And you'll want to decide just how much of the building and its environments that you want to show for your elevation. Let's show a fair amount. Turn off that section plane again. You don't want to see that. See how much nicer it looks when it's not visible. If you have messed it up at all, see how I kind of messed up the view a little bit by being aggressive with my mouse tool. You can absolutely click on the face style again. Also, if you are prone, if you have a jittery mouse, I suppose you could say, you can just use the pan tool rather than your mouse to get a more precise adjustment. And one quirky thing about the way SketchUp works is a section and an interior elevation, basically for our purposes, work exactly the same way. You insert a section plane here, and here this orange one, I believe, is the one for my interior elevation. You just want to make sure when you draw it that you move that section plane. Typically with an interior elevation, you don't show any furniture, so the section cut, the actual section object, should be just off the wall, whereas a building section, let me switch to this longitudinal view, you typically do show a lot more of the interior. In fact, if you can, you try to go through a door or window so that you can see the height of the head and how that compares with the rest of the space. Last little tweak you can do here is I don't think I really like seeing the environment visible on these elevation views. I can just go to the environment tab and turn that off, which is easy enough. And in the environments menu, you do have to go to select. And if it's not there already, click the home button. And then there's a no environments button at all. And honestly, I think that looks a little bit better. And there is a way, actually, you can apply that change to multiple scenes all at once. If you go to your scenes menu and just hold down Shift if you need to select a whole bunch at the same time. And then when you've selected them, you can click the Update Scene button. Now, when you do that in the Scenes menu, it will ask you, what do you want me to update? And in this case, I don't want to update anything but that environment setting. So I'll just uncheck all of those. So now it just says environment settings. And the beauty of that is it might take a minute for all the thumbnails to update. But now each of the scenes has the environment removed, probably. Oh, I must have missed one longitudinal section. There we go. We can turn it off in that one. Oh yeah, I see it's way down at the bottom. Whoopsie daisy. So for example, I'm not overly fond of the sketchy lines here in this view. So I could tone those down, or I could just, I don't know, turn on the shadows, for example, here in this view, and I get a much nicer, sharper shadow than you get using the standard sky dome that you get with the environments menu. And typically the shadow does come from the lower left, so you'll want to tweak these shadows, make sure they look the way you want. And then remember to update your saved scene so that it will come back and it'll remember that you have made those changes. Also, that change only affects this view. So a lot of views, like these elevation views, tweaking the sun angle to get a nice shadow is really a great way to kind of tweak your drawing and get a nice look to it. See here, just adding a little bit of shadow makes a big difference just in the way things look. We've gone to all the effort to make this look more photorealistic. Maybe we should get some nicer materials. And to do that, in the materials menu, it doesn't have all these high quality materials called PBR. So you should click the Launch 3D Warehouse button. When you click it from the materials menu, it will take you right into the materials section of the 3D warehouse. And here you can download whole collections of materials, wood and whatnot. Or you can just search for something. Now, when you do that, I searched for roofing because I wanted to find something that's like our metal siding. What you'll see, some materials are just like materials. They don't have anything next to them, but some say texture maps. And what that is a physically based material. And what they have are a number of different what are called maps, which are variations on the image that allow you to say, make a material look more sticky outy, more rough, and that ambient occlusion feature, it will look extra nice when we do that. And I'm going to download this, and I could download whole collections, but I'm not going to do that because it takes a ton of space in your model. Downloading them one by one is probably a better way. But now when you paint that material, you can see it looks very photorealistic. It's got almost a depth to it in addition to the coloration and the texture. And one thing about these PBR materials is you can't right click on them and edit the texture position like we did before. But here in the properties of the material, there's a number of features. So for example, if I want it to be a bigger dimension, let's make this, 2 feet across instead of 1. Just a wider board. You can colorize it in any number of ways by editing the color. Or you can also change some of the features, the metalness, for example, the roughness. You can even invert some of these if it's not giving you the kind of shine that you like. And the normal is how much it sticks out. So the more you drag this, the more it kind of fakes the look of something that is sticky outy. So there's a lot of options in these materials. And I would strongly recommend going and getting materials with those texture maps. For example, this guy's a real nice one, and I'm going to paint that along the base. And if you want the skirting to be lighter or darker, you can edit the material. What about materials that you've used based on images? Obviously, Obviously, if you have a real product, you wouldn't want to change that. But what you can do, I'm going to go to my materials menu. I'll use the eyedropper tool to slurp up a material. And once you have that material selected, and it will do that in this particular method, you see how it's highlighted. You can use this special AI feature. And what that will do, I'll click on that button and it will generate the maps for you. And this is great because, one, it saves you some time in Photoshop. And now you have all these options for that material that you didn't have before. For example, I can go in and edit, and I can try and make it, I don't know, look a little rougher just by dragging on it, change the normal of this material. See how it's a little hard to see from this distance, but I can make it look a lot rougher or shinier, depending on the material. So you'll want to go around and decide if it's worth replacing these materials with the PBR materials. If you see them up close and personal in one of your views, it's definitely worth it. Things like grass, gravel, anything with a lot of texture is actually going to look a lot nicer when you can change the roughness of the material. A nice little feature integrated with SketchUp is the ability to share your model so that you can get comments from other people. And this is because there is a feature called Trimble Connect that allows you to upload models and have other people share them. And then there's a little comment button that you can add comments to parts of your drawing. Say, I don't like the way your furniture is laid out, or whatever it is. So first of all, what you'll want to do is under the Edit menu, purge any unused assets. Now, SketchUp will do this automatically. But if it detects anything that's hasn't been purged or and is not being used, this is a great way to kind of clean up your model. But then on that little toolbar that I couldn't get rid of at the beginning, the Trimble toolbar, you'll see a button called the Collaboration bar. You call that up, and there's an option to share. And you just click Share. Now, in order to share, you have to upload the model to Trimble Connect. So I'll hit that. It saves it to Trimble Connect, which is an account you get when you first log in to your SketchUp license. And there's an option to save it into a folder somewhere. So I'm going to put this in a folder for this class and choose Save As. So now it is posted to the internet, and you'll see the uploading icon as this thing spins around. And like you do with other shared documents, you can control how it's shared. You can invite somebody specifically by their email address. So that works great for me, your instructor. Or you can just have a link and let anybody either view the model or just view scenes. They will need SketchUp. So it is not great for somebody who doesn't have SketchUp, but it is allowed to share it with people using the free version of SketchUp. So just click Done, and you're done. The way it works is you click the comment button if you're the commenter, and you can the comment will add a 3D position, and you can then make a comment on here, don't like that couch. And there you go. The person you share it with will see that comment right off the bat. So now that your model is absolutely perfect, you've got all sorts of different scenes saved for the required views, both perspective and orthographic, parallel projection. And you've saved the model. You want to send it to a program called Layout. And Layout is what SketchUp uses to set up sheets of drawings using your model. And when you call up Layout, it's a separate program. In fact, you don't even need to have SketchUp running. Here's a choice for different size sheets. You can see most of these are architectural. I'm going to choose one with a title block just to save us some time. Arch D is a good one because that's a standard architectural size. And gives us plenty of space for scaled drawings. And when Layout launches, you can use almost all the same tools that you use in the main version of SketchUp, which is to say I can scroll in and out with my scroll wheel. If I click and drag the scroll wheel, I don't need the left mouse button, it pans, which is handy. And it should look like a blank sheet of paper. And if you're familiar with AutoCAD or Revit, the sheet interface is pretty similar. There's kind of a viewport. And this viewport, if you click on it, it's your last view in SketchUp before you sent it over to Layout. These can be resized using what are called grips. And sometimes you'll get that little yellow excited icon, yield icon, whatever it is, saying, oh, I'm updating. And you can see when you resize the viewport, it will resize what you see, kind of based on the proportions. So you can do some image composition just by using these grips. I will warn you, with the Photoreal Style active, it can be a little bit slow, so be patient. But the other thing is, if you have a view and you don't quite like it, let's say I want a wide view, but for other reasons, maybe the sheet layout, I can actually double click inside this view here, and you see how there's a little border that shows up? I am now inside the model, and I can use my tools, the usual view tools, to zoom in and out, pan, zoom. In fact, you can right click and all the tools will be available here if you'd rather. There's also some of the other tools, including styles and scenes that are in the project. And like in the main SketchUp tool, the Move tool is just the Move tool, but if you tap Control, it becomes the Copy tool, and if you tap Control a second time, it becomes the Stamp tool. Now, when I give it a base point, I can actually make multiple copies of this viewport, and I do happen to know that there are going to be 4 perspective drawings, and each one of these I can set to a different saved scene. So, for example, maybe I'm going to have 2 exterior views and 2 interior views. If you go here to the default tray, and again, it's called the default tray, just like in the main version of SketchUp, there's several different tabs, of course, but the SketchUp model is the one we're most interested in. I could right-click on this and access the saved scenes, but I can also do it here from this menu. These are all the saved scenes that I have in my project. If you have manipulated the view at all by double-clicking inside the viewport, sometimes layout will be a little reluctant to change the view. So do hit this Reset All button, and what that'll do, hopefully, will update the view to be your scene. So anyway, sometimes it gets a little reluctant. Lastly, if your viewport doesn't look good. So this view doesn't look so great. This is a 3-point perspective. You see how these lines are parallel? I must have not set this view up properly or not updated the scene properly. You can absolutely come in here and add effects and styles and environment right here in the layout. But I would recommend going back to your SketchUp model and apply all the styles and other effects that you want for this scene. And in particular, the 2-point perspective option. This is really important because it makes drawings look a little more finished, a little more architectural. You do want to pan so that, particularly in this case, it's a 1-point. You kind of expect the eye height to be in the middle. And we are shooting for a balance of walls, ceiling, and floor. So ponder that as you set up the view. But then, most important, don't forget to update this scene and then save your model. And you can layout, select the viewport, and it should remember, because hopefully we updated the right one. Click this little update button, and it should update the view. And this is great in case something horrible happens to your file. You have updated the original SketchUp model. Other things that you should consider when you're cropping a view, you can force layout to not change the kind of composition by checking this Preserve Scale button. Now, when I crop it, you see how it doesn't it doesn't kind of rezoom the image, and now I can crop it a little more easily, kind of getting the exact proportions that I think look nice. You pretty much want your exterior of your building to be in the center. However, you also for these interior views, you want to make sure that they also show something that makes a lot of sense. Then, once you're done with that, you can resize these windows to match each other. So when laying out the sheet of drawings, of course, you do want to be cognizant of what the title block is. Now, this is just the default title block, and we probably don't want to use the default title block, although some of the elements are fine. You can select these elements and move them around, just like in SketchUp. You can rotate them, they will snap, and you can, say, lay this out to be kind of whatever you want it to look like. You can stretch out the objects here. They're all just objects drawn in SketchUp. or I'm sorry, in layout. So for example, this is just a line. Layout calls them shapes, and they have different properties. Stroke is the line weight, and the color of that stroke is here. And then you can have them add a fill pattern. So for example, if I select this background kind of bar here, I can resize it by mousing over the edge of it. And resizing in layout is a little tricky because it's always kind of snapping to something. But you can see here it's got a color. I can change that fill color, hello fill, to anything I want just by clicking on the color zone here. I can change the font, I can move the lines, and make this title block your own. But do give your project a title, something clever like tiny house renovations, but then your own name and all that kind of stuff, the class, the date. You will notice that the date should automatically update. The other thing that you can do on the sheet, you can add some sheet graphics. So for example, I can draw a shape around some of these images. This image, I don't like how light it's gotten. I can just draw a rectangle around this shape. And well, that doesn't look nearly as good as I was hoping. And the reason is because it has a fill color. If I tap the fill button, now there's no fill color. And let's make the line weight really black, but we can make it a really heavy line weight. Oh, I don't know, maybe even 4 instead of 2. And there you go. You've got a nice border around your image. And if you do that, you can copy it over to the other drawings. And doing so is kind of handy because now I can see, oh, these drawings aren't all the same size. I can stretch the viewports so that they match and look nice and neat. You don't have to do this board layout, but of course, simple is faster, isn't it? And while we're talking about sheet graphics, there is a cool feature here, a kind of library called the scrapbook. And the scrapbook is super handy. You can see here, it kind of opens up and it's got these doors visible. And you can drag these onto your plan. Let's go here. If I scroll down in the list, there's people. We like people, don't we? And let's say you forgot to put a scale figure in your drawing. You can actually literally just grab one of these people here. I'll grab one of these white ones and drop them into your drawing. Now, you do have to be aware that you are dealing with perspective. So if you remember rules of perspective, put the feet where you want them to show up in the drawing. Put the eye height at roughly the size, the location of the horizon line. So you do need to kind of think about it in perspective. Obviously, the scale figure would get bigger the closer into the foreground that they get. But what's nice is now I have one, I can actually copy and paste him. And if you, like me, and always forget until the last minute to put in scale figures, that's the way to go. And there's also a whole series of title blocks that you can use. If you go here, let's go to title block contemporary, and you can use these titles, arrows, even notes. To every drawing should have a title. Why not just use one that's the same? You can literally just drag it onto your drawing, and here it is. You can nudge it or you can move it. You just have to be patient. Sometimes layout is a little laggy when it comes to moving these objects. And then use your move, copy, stamp command to make copies of this title block for each of your drawings. Every drawing should have a title. And you can see it has all of the smart cursor alignment tools. And I think I'll put my materials down here at the bottom of this drawing. And if I want to move a whole bunch of things all at once, well, the same window tool is available, selection versus crossing window, and I can use the arrow keys. Note me tapping on the arrow key to nudge things up. And there you go. You've got yourself a whole sheet of perspectives. Of course, I have to clean it up a little bit by renaming all of these things. To rename them, these are just like groups in SketchUp. Just double click on it and you can change the title. Try to give it a title that makes sense. Interior view of the living room, for example, is a nice way to do it. None of these are to scale, so you don't need to fill that in, or you can type in NTS for not to scale, and then click outside of that component. You can also import images, File, Insert, and you can browse for all of those images that you collected for materials and furnishings, and we should have 4 or so of each. You should have 4 each for interior finish materials or exterior finish materials, and 4 pieces of furniture. And hold down Control if you want to select things discontiguously. However, just be aware, I have cleanly and cleverly put these all into one folder. You should always, always do that. All the assets for a project should go into one folder. Anyway, if you click all of these all at once, you should be able to open them into the project. You see how they all come on top of each other. Why would you do this? Because now I can kind of stretch them down. If you hold down Shift, it will stretch them proportionally. Obviously, that's really important because these are materials. You don't want to warp them so that they look weird. And now each one can be spread out on its own. This one stayed a little big. It would look a lot nicer if these materials are kind of the same size. And of course you can, like I did before, hold down Shift to resize. You can select a bunch of images using either the selection window or the crossing window, just like in SketchUp. Or you can just hold down Shift and click on them directly. And then there's a bunch of arrange tools, so you can arrange them all, say, by their bottom. And now, if I grab one of these and I click and drag the top, now I don't want to warp it, so hold down Shift. I can make reference to one of the endpoints on one of the other materials, and now each one of these can be made the same size. I can also space them evenly. Again, make sure that you just have the objects you want. Under this Arrange menu, there is a space option, which will space them out nice and evenly. The other thing you can do is put in a title. And titles are super easy. It's just a text box. And of course, I'm sure you've all done text boxes before. And you can call this whatever it is. I went to the Cravat website, so Cravat whatever material. Or you can just say interior finishing and be a little more generic, fabric or something like that. And text, by the way, can be manipulated just like in any other program. So if you double click on this to edit it, say Control U makes it underlined, Control B makes it bold or not. And of course, we can copy this title like we did before. Again, move and use the stamp tool is probably the way to go. I can make a bunch of titles. So all of your materials should have some kind of title, materials and furnishings. And lastly, if you have all of these, you can nudge them up or down to kind of fill the space evenly. Once again, I'll use selection or crossing windows to neaten it up. So we've basically got a nice sheet of perspective drawings. Let's make a sheet of orthographic drawings. And what I'm going to do, I've gone to the Pages menu, and you'll see by default you get kind of a cover page, which looks a little different, and then an inside page. And I like that inside page. I'm going to make another one. And anything that shows up on this particular layer is going to be repeated on every sheet. So you can see my border is already in there. I can change the sheet name and number, or I can just give it a different title. And I can copy and paste in things. I'm going to copy and paste in the title block and the viewport and even the box. I'm going to just Control C and then go to this new sheet and I'm going to paste it in. And once I've got them on this new sheet, I can stretch out the viewport and then swap this for my site plan. Just remember, if it doesn't update, hit this Reset All button, and there you go. You've got your site plan. We can set it to scale by just choosing a scale here in the Scale menu, and it will automatically zoom to the correct position. And I can double-click inside of it and pan the model over so that I can see all of the elements that I think are important in this project. The one thing you can't do, or you shouldn't do, is scroll in and out. If you do that, you see how it will change or it could change the scale. In this case, the scale has been locked by this Preserve Scale button. If it isn't, if that button is not checked, you're going to get in trouble. But I can change the cropping here by just dragging this, and you see how it doesn't alter the zooming, and that's kind of the point of a scaled drawing. So make it big enough so that you can see the project and its environments if you have a playground in the front or something like that. And then if you like the look of a border, you can drag that puppy back in here, and lo and behold, you've got yourself a nice site plan. Now, if you're having trouble getting your model to align with each other, there's a couple things you can do. First of all, if you go to the View menu, you can enable Draft Mode, which I believe should make the model go a little faster. The other thing that you can do is show a grid. And seeing this grid of lines will help you when you want to align drawings. Typically, the drawings do kind of align with each other based on the outer walls. And same here, you want to align something with the plan, and elevation would be great. So you can also draw yourself reference lines as well. Lastly, the elevations are a little different because, first of all, exterior elevations, if you remember, we crop them to the ground. And to make that work, sometimes you have to kind of move the crop up and down because it's forever snapping to stuff. And then we could use this outer boundary here to get ourselves a nice, neat elevation. However, especially if you have the sky active in your drawing, you don't necessarily need that, but you can draw yourself just a real heavy line at the ground, like we did when we drew by hand. If you just hit Escape to end drawing that line, I didn't really set a line weight, but let's go to Shape Style and make this something really heavy, maybe 8 point, something like that. Oh yeah, that's a nice heavy line. As we did before, you can also drag in things like scale figures. Your elevations are particularly tricky because you should not see anything cut through. So make sure that you use your snapping tool here. And in this case, I really shouldn't see the bathroom. That would be a separate interior elevation. But to get the floor to crop away, I might have to crop up and then down in order to get the snapping that I want. Lastly, use that nice heavy boundary that we copied over from the other sheet, and there's your interior elevation. I may want to fiddle with the sun settings in order to get a nicer look, otherwise it'll be a little too dark. Lastly, let me put a nice big title on this sheet, and I'll call it Orthographic Drawings, and make that nice. And you can do that here on your text style palette. Make it big enough so that you can read it, of course, but not too big. And a font that is your favorite font. And then center it on the sheet. Now, one thing about these pieces of text, this is on a layer which does not repeat from sheet to sheet. So if you want it on the other sheet, obviously not orthographic title, you do have to copy it and then go to your other page, the inside page, and paste it in. Control V, see how it actually shows up in exactly the same location. And now I can just double click on the text and to edit it and rename it Perspective Drawings. Or whatever you want. You don't have to label it that. You can label it My Awesome Tiny House is also possible. You can even rename these sheets. Not really critical, but you can if you want to keep track of what's on what page. Okay, time to save and export. Saving is not really hard. You just hit save and it will prompt you to save it somewhere on your computer. And then exporting is also not hard because you just go to the File pull-down menu and choose Export. And of course, when you do that, make sure that you save it somewhere you'll remember where it is and give it a name. And what it will do is export a PDF file. When you choose that option, it will say what size file do you want. Obviously, email, a smaller file size is better, but for us, let's go with better quality. We may want to print this at some point, and you can always back off of it. And if it's just 2 or 3 sheets, in our case just 2, the file size won't be too big. But then you click Export, and when you do, mine's overwriting the version I already had because I spotted some errors. Then you will have a nice PDF that you can present and print. And you can see here from my preview that I accidentally left the first page in. Well, if you have the full version of Adobe, you can just delete it right here. If you don't, just go back and make sure you just either delete that page before you export, or when you do export, specify which pages you want. So be sure to check the assignment description and get all of the elements that are required. I may or may not have actually drawn them all here. And then be your own best critic. check and make sure the graphics are consistent and that you like them, that they show off the project well, that drawings are aligned with each other, that every drawing has a title, and all that. And of course, make sure that the title block has your name on it and also is to your liking.